just as much my fault. I'd completely tuned him out. It's dreadful. Dreadful. Right, they're going back to selection, choosing, scanning for trading opportunities in forex. Those of you who, I know we've got some of our students here, some users of our indicators, but in case this is the first time you've seen something like this, we developed it to help with either highlighting a potential trade, or at least or use it the way I use it, because I'm just focused on the British pound and the British pound pairs. But this is what part of the dashboard looks like. We have a currency strength indicator, which is disassembles the market into the individual currencies, and each one of these lines represents a currency, and this is what they've been doing, as I said, in the hourly chart. This morning we had a nice move higher in the British pound, but as we can see here, there's been it's been a bit of a reversal. But the interesting currency has really been the US dollar. You can see it's put on a bit of a spurt, certainly in since the start of the session. Now, if you're not focused on a particular currency or a particular currency pair, what you would do is you would look at this, you would look at what the individual currencies are doing, what's going up, what's been going down, is there anything at a point of potential reversal, either overbought or oversold. We can see here, actually, this is the British pound and the US dollar, but that's past us, that's already gone, that's happened. So what would you do? What we've developed, we've taken it one step further. We actually look at pairs. We take that data and we look at the strongest pairs that have been moving up and down this ladder. Now, I've actually isolated the US dollar because that's the currency that has been moving strongly. I know the yen's been moving strongly higher as well, but looking at the matrix here, we can see the dollar CAD is the strongest of the dollar pairs. I'm just focused on cable, and I can look at this and think, where is cable? Well, that's only been it's in the middle here. It's 17, and in fact, when I look at the chart, I can see that it's that value tells me that there isn't a lot of movement in the pair at the moment. There's been a much stronger move in the Aussie. The Aussie dollar was actually the weakest, and also the euro dollar. So we could, so if I were just looking for an opportunity, the cable was probably not one that I would be considering at this particular time on this particular time frame. And looking at the values generally, if I take the dollar off and put up the Canadian, because it was we see the dollar CAD here is the strongest, but that's also telling us that there's an awful lot of selling in the Canadian. That's the purple line. We are in a session where you would expect the Canadian to be traded much more heavily, because we're in the North American session, and Canadian is local currency. But it also tells us that there have possibly been some really nice opportunities in the Canadian. We can see here the Canadian actually takes all the top spots and the two bottom spots. And if we look at the values, because these values also tell us something about the moves that have either happened or happening at the moment. We've got the dollar CAD at 51, but look at the CAD yen. It's 60. And if we look over here on the array, this is on the 15-minute array. This indicator measures the sort of the strength of the trend, if you like. We can see that the CAD yen has been selling off quite. In fact, the Canadian has been selling off against. There's been a consistency of selling against everything for the Canadian dollar. Now, I'm not using this in this way at the moment. As I said, I am focused on my, I have selected my currency for this period. In fact, I think probably for the rest of the month. So what I've done, and you can do this on MT45, is I've actually isolated out the British pound pairs. And the reason I've done this is because when you have the CSI, as we saw earlier here, and you say, well, I'm only going to trade, you know, cable, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at what cable is actually doing. It's very easy to think, oh my goodness, you know, cable's not doing very much at the moment. Oh look, you know, the Aussie dollar is moving really fast. Oh, maybe I should go over there. It's really to stop that, and it's just a case of I just want to be focused on the British pound pairs. And yes, it's all, you know, yes, I have missed, you know, maybe a nice move in the CAD yen, but I'm not, you know, I'm trying to be a little bit more focused. You can use it in this way. So turning them all off, as it were, for me works much better. So what I've done, and you can do this for MT4 and 5, is basically I have here, so I've got euro pound. Now, what's interesting about euro pound is there was a really nice move on euro pound, as we can see here, just after the London Open. We had a really nice divergence, which is what we want to see. You want strong move higher for the euro and a strong move lower in the British pound. And I think the screenshot I took on my Facebook page, it was actually the pair that had moved the most in this particular part of the trading session. Then we had nothing. We had when the lines do this, they go either in the same direction or they sort of, you know, intertwine each other. It's not going anywhere. It's in congestion. Then we had a nice bit of divergence. In fact, we had the pound rising and the euro falling. But look, then when that started to fall again, it tells you so much about that pair, and you know whether in fact it is worth. It's a filter. It's a kind of scanner. It tells you, well, okay, maybe that's not my pair at the moment. Then I go on to cable. Cable, they tell its own story. And what you can do as well is I have the two indicators on the one chart here. So if you actually highlight the British pound, it also tells you where they rank, where the pairs actually rank on the matrix. So, and it's just a quick and very smart way of being able, first of all, to determine what the pair, you know, this is cable, I'm on cable. Well, actually, you know, how's it performing against all its, you know, the other sterling pairs in its matrix? Is it sort of meandering along? Well, you know, the lines are kind of going in the same direction. The values aren't very high at the moment. What we're also doing, and I've mentioned it before with this particular indicator, is there's going to be an upgrade coming soon, whereby the values at the extremes of the indicator, there will be some notation to tell you whether it's an average value, whether it's below average, or whether it's high value, and that kind of also gives you an indication of the strength of the move that's been happening. So that's just a little feature that we're building into it as well. Then I look at pound yen. Well, you know, there's obviously that's I suspect on the chart that will be horrible. That will be choppy, going nowhere, lots of fake outs, lots of, you know, just going nowhere. Then you get this really nice divergence. That's what we want to see. Pound Canadian. Well, we've said about the Canadian being sold off very heavily, but you know, against the British pound, it wasn't that fantastic, as we saw on the matrix on the hourly chart. Let's have a look at the Canadian here. Let's have a look. What was the well, the Euro CAD was let's have a look. Yeah, the Euro, maybe what am I talking here? Oh, it's going up. Let's look at the hourly chart. Let's compare apples with apples here. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the Canadian. Just take a few minutes. Put some more days in. Oh, there we are. Right, let's look at the Canadian. We can see here. Where's the pound CAD? Oh, it was the second one, but look at the value. The value of the pound CAD is only 32.4 against the dollar CAD, which is 56. That tells you, although it's the second, if you like, on the ranking, in terms of the strength of move, it wasn't anywhere near the same as the euro against the dollar CAD. Let me just go back to 10 minutes. Because I'm actually looking at the pound Canadian, and I'm doing the same with the pound New Zealand. Again, going in the same direction. I've got the pound Aussie. It was a pair that I'm always quite heavily involved with. Again, you know, what's it telling me? And the pound Swiss, we've seen some divergence there, and it looks like we've got a little cross here with the Swiss falling and possibly the pound turning up. So it's a quick and easy way to, you know, to find either a trading opportunity in a reduced number of pairs that possibly that you want to trade, or you can use them, you can scan all 28 pairs and, you know, make the decision accordingly. At the moment, as I said, I'm personally just focused on the British pound. A lot of it is to do with the fact that we are obviously here in the UK. The pound is traded heavily in the London Open, but also traded heavily in the US session. Your selection will depend obviously where you are in the world.